And that takes us to the main event with Dr. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa steel cage match for the AEW Women's Championship. And this had been a pretty hot crowd all show long. And then it went to the next level. And they had a mariachi band to play out Thunder Rosa, who comes out. And I mean, you know exactly where this match is going. I mean, were very smart. It was like, hey, we know what you want. We're going to give you what you want, but we are always going to be able to live off of the last like generation of WWE wrestling fans who will believe that there's no way. They're going to create that doubt. It's the same fans that thought, you know, it'd be great at the United Center if Punk's music plays, but instead of Punk showing up, it's MJF.
Yeah.
And you're always going to have that doubt. Like people will never assume like you're getting like the big ending. And maybe it's good to create that doubt, but this was about as clear cut as you knew things were going here.
It's so funny because like when I think of like big matches where one person gets a grand entrance and the other person does not, to me, like I think about WrestleMania 12, where Shawn Michaels comes down the zip line as the challenger and Britt just walks out. And even as a little kid, I knew exactly what the finish was going to be. So it's WWE kind of establishing like these expectations in the past to me that for some reason they no longer follow. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Of course, you needed to create a big moment. It doesn't matter what might be telegraphed or what might not, because in years' time, we're going to be thinking about the mariachi band. We're going to be thinking about Thunder Rosa coming out with the emotion on her face, looking like she was about to live the biggest moment of her life.
It's where people complicate pro wrestling, where you look at some setting like this and the audience is telling you what they want. So you can either maximize what they want so you get the biggest reaction possible, or you get into this trap where, oh, it's so obvious, we now have to trick them.
Yeah, it's silly.
They could have tricked us. Yeah, they could have done that. Baker could have stolen the pinfall at the end. That would have done wonders. A sold out arena that has come to see Thunder Rosa win the title. We could have tricked them and they would have gone home saying, man, I was really hoping Thunder Rosa would win, but I didn't think that would happen.
I think people confuse unpredictability with just like surprise. There are ways to satisfy people while surprising them and giving them the finish that I think everybody wants, giving them the ending of the story that I think everybody wants. You know, it's your twists and turns that I think we're asking for. And that doesn't always need to come in the form of an unhappy ending.
Well, now it's the other way around because you have like a generation of some fans, I'll say some fans, that this is the surprise. That Thunder Rosa won. Like this was like, oh man, she won? There were no shenanigans? They're not going to overturn this?
Yeah, don't say wrestling isn't layered, okay? There's years of psychology that built up into a moment like this.
Britt Baker came out in black and white tribute gear for Scott Hall. And
with the drips.
Yes, with the drips. Early on, she is getting her face rubbed into the cage, so she's bleeding early, and shortly after, Thunder Rosa is bleeding as well. So blood in this match, but I wouldn't say it was like the dominant theme of the match.
I think they were trying, John. Like I think they were trying pretty hard to achieve the same blood flow that we saw in that first match a year ago, of course. And doubly this time, but I mean, it didn't need that much blood. It's fine.
They wanted a Toronto Star match. That's what they were shooting for.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Baker brings
Forget the 5-star scale. What about the Toronto Star scale?
Yes. What will the comment be? Baker brings chairs into the ring. Rosa fires back with clotheslines and hits a stunner on 316. Baker then misses a super kick and nails Paul Turner, who just flies to the floor. Dude, Paul Turner just took a tumble after the super kick.
I also love the fact that at least, like, I don't know if this is for all AEW cage matches, but at least for this one, they mentioned there are no escape rules here.
No,
you cannot win by escape, which is, I think, the original idea of what a cage match is supposed to be. It's supposed to contain people in there just so that they can get, a conclusive finish. So I like that. This is also a pretty uniquely shaped cage in that one side is pressed up against the ring for them to, do their spots on, climb, ram their opponent's heads into, and the rest of it has basically, the aisleway, or at least what am I thinking of? The mats on the outside. So it's almost like a combination of like a Hell in a Cell and a steel cage.
Yeah, and that adds a lot, having that room around the ring. So both are bleeding. Paul Turner's out, and Thunder Rosa gets a visual cover on Britt Baker, but no referee. Hits a Fire Thunder driver. The crowd is screaming, counting as there's no referee to count. Baker comes back, she stacks the chairs and hits an air raid crash off the second turnbuckle. At this point, Aubrey Edwards comes in to replace Turner as the referee. Rosa kicks out from the chair spot to a huge reaction, and then Baker sets up this chair contraption in the corner where we have 4 chairs set up, and then she puts chairs on top of them, all in the seated position, and they battle on the top turnbuckle, and they're just throwing back strikes, and the crowd is waiting to see who will take the plunge of death. And it's Baker who comes off the cage with her head rammed and goes through these chairs. She did land on like the flat part of the seats, but it's metal chairs nonetheless. So it was a pretty spectacular looking fall, but it's only a 2 count. Baker kicks out from this, and she gets to the floor and brings thumbtacks into the ring. Jim Ross is questioning, why are there thumbtacks underneath a professional wrestling ring? And Thunder Rosa stops her, but Baker back body drops Thunder Rosa onto the tacks. There's a kick out, and Baker goes to the lockjaw, shifts to the other side, and with Baker's hand free, Thunder Rosa takes her hand and slams it over and over onto the tacks. What a great spot.
It looked like it really hurt. I also really appreciated like the really like technical float over from one side of the lockjaw to the other in the midst of all this carnage. So that was actually quite nice.
So Baker has to give up on the lockjaw. Her hand is in pain, and she gets powerbombed onto the tacks, followed by the Fire Thunder driver, and Thunder Rosa wins the championship. And we go off the air with Thunder Rosa celebrating in her hometown, and Dustin Rhodes is in the ring as well to congratulate her. I thought this was a spectacular show.
The whole show was incredible, but let's focus on this match first. Like,
yes,
the moment of that pinfall, we all knew what the finish was going to be, and I'm sure Thunder Rosa, of course, knew what the finish was going to be. But nonetheless, the emotion when it became real on her face, with thumbtacks on her body, with blood flowing down her forehead, and with tears flowing down her eyes, I'll never forget that visual. You know, like in a predetermined sport, like there are moments like this that are so rare for athletes like this to achieve, that of course feel incredibly real. And those are the moments to me that like make this stuff worth watching. I got emotional here. You know, it was really beautiful. I don't know if this match was as good as the first one, but I had higher expectations for this one. Everybody had higher expectations for it. I would certainly qualify it as a worthy sequel, and the emotion attached to the finale definitely was higher, especially given the backstory and the outstanding setting that they had.
And let's not forget, like last year's one as well, you had like the limited crowds at Daly's place. So totally, like imagine tonight's show in that setting at Daly's place. Like the crowd was such a huge part of tonight's show. I mean, it's our, millionth reminder of like what the atmosphere does for a wrestling show. I thought this was a tremendous show. Both women I thought worked incredibly hard in this main event. And you're right. Like it was like the post-match stuff. She conveyed it so big. Like this was a significant title change going from, you're really one of your pillars of the company as they have,
I think the best women's title run that they've had.
Oh, easily. I would say easily at this point. Like she has elevated that title. It's like a sizable shift now to like the successor to Britt Baker with Thunder Rosa, and you did it in the right place, the right time. Mm-hmm. I think totally justified why they did the pay-per-view the way they did. Like this came off like this was so much of a better idea than if they had done that, with several matches to follow at the pay-per-view, and it would have been just one of many, many matches on that show.
Well, everything almost seems so perfect. Like a year from the day of them doing that last match, being in Thunder Rosa's hometown, it's almost as if he booked this show for this particular match in this particular moment, They might have. Yeah. But I mean, hey, we waited a whole year for this, and by the time it got here, they stuck the landing, onto thumbtacks. And
like on top of it, like we always talk about this, like you create that that hometown hero. And the next time they come to San Antonio, like, it's going to be a big deal just because of memories of this night that this audience is going to leave, and I'm sure have a pretty positive reaction to tonight's show, that the next time they come, like, that's a benefit. And I don't know if they had pulled the rug out from underneath Thunder Rosa, that 6 months from now, you would have had, oh, Dynamite's back in town. Got to make sure we're there, because that last time, man, did we get cheated.
It's crazy
this to me is going to resonate with an audience so much more that they will remember this.
Well, it's crazy that we're even having that thought, you know, that a professional wrestling company could possibly even consider that, having such a perfect moment be taken away for a hometown wrestler, when the goal of this is to build superstars and to create memories, right? And to WWE's credit, I think, like, when it comes time for a WrestleMania, they do stuff like that. You know, they do give, like, the home, like, whatever, the main character, the championship. But I mean, of course, there have been plenty of other opportunities where they've been able to give hometown stars a win, and they haven't. So, regardless of, like, those comparisons, I love this show. I was fully engaged throughout it all. I thought you had significant storyline moments or just great wrestling in almost every single segment. To me, this was not a show that felt as rushed as previous weeks.
The pacing was so much better this week, and maybe last week was like an exceptionally busier show than it was. It was more busy than even a typical Dynamite, which is busy. This one, to me, it was a big difference just having 5 matches as opposed to 6. You got length with that 6-man instead of, you know, Hangman and Dante Martin rushing through like 7 minutes last week. You got 14, where the commercial in the middle did not hinder that. And I thought you had everything breathe a lot more just having the 5 matches, and especially with everything leading to the main event, which was pretty much the last like 25 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I thought everything honestly was worth watching on this show. Like, there's no kind of cherry picking out of this show, because I thought everything was worthwhile, from the opening 6-man tag to that Moxley Brian Yuta stuff, which was great storytelling and a great match. You had the
talking segment in between. Like, it wasn't just like, you know, like wrestling. Like, you had a big like talking segment that was significant and was very strong to establish like a main heel unit in the company.
Absolutely. And of course, a fantastic main event.